Welcome back to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Melisa Schiffers is the Assistant Director of Nursing at a recovery center in Texas. She helps people dealing with addiction. It's something she knows all too well. And when she decided to write her book, it helped that she'd been a writer all of her life. Welcome, Melisa. Unchained, Healing from Abuse, an interactive workbook is the name of your book. And it's quite an accomplishment for you, isn't it?
So I've written all my life, and it's been a dream to write, but, as per the book, you can kind of see that I had some issues that I didn't even know I had. So I would not complete anything. I would, didn't have the self-esteem. I have a lot of self-esteem, but I just I guess it was fear-based, and I would not complete things, or I didn't think, it could get published. I did write a children's book that I actually published long, long ago, but I really didn't do a lot with that.
So you talk about narcissistic abuse.
Yes.
What exactly is that?
So a narcissist is a mental disorder, and it can rarely be fixed because a narcissist doesn't know that they are unhealthy mentally. They live in their own world and their own delusion. A narcissist has two personalities, a public one, and I will take my ex-husband, for example. Everyone in public loved him. They thought he was wonderful, very kind. Women loved him. And but at home, it's totally different story. It's like they have a mask and they take it off, and they're a very bad, evil person. They mentally, physically, sexually, financially abuse you. They abuse you in every way possible. And then they gaslight you and make you think you're crazy and you're the one with all the problems, and you get trauma bonded.
Trauma bonded.
Yes. Have you ever seen an interview of anyone like on 2020 or some show like that, or even on YouTube, where someone was captured by a sexual predator and abused viciously, and then they get found and released, and they're like, but he was nice to me, he fed me? That's the trauma bond. You start to feel sorry for your captor. So trauma bonded is this emotional connection that's very, very unhealthy that you have to your partner that's abusing you. And that's one reason when people try and leave toxic relationships with narcissists, it's very hard to leave. Or even, it doesn't even have to be a narcissist. Anyone that abused you, it's hard to leave them because you're so crushed as a person, you actually lose yourself. So you feel like you need them to continue on, and you're trauma bonded. You think you love this person. You love the fake person, not the real person.
You were in a relationship like this.
Yes. And sadly, I kept continuing the cycle of, I grew up in a narcissistic home. So I went into a narcissistic relationship, but they kept getting worse. So I've never had a healthy relationship, and I can admit that now because I say I heal. I went to counseling, I did all the work, I healed, and now, I feel like I'm not broken anymore, and I'm very healthy in my decisions and the things I do, and even relationships. I can tell the difference between a healthy relationship and not a healthy relationship. So my last marriage, I had an extreme narcissist. He was actually a malignant narcissist, and they actually have oftentimes other mental disorders, like psychopathy, and I'm sure he had other disorders on top of that. So it's very, very difficult.
Okay. Psychopathy?
Yes, like a psychopath or a sociopath.
Oh.
So yeah, they have those tendencies and those behaviors. Like a psychopath has no compassion or no empathy. Neither does a narcissist. They can't feel feelings like a normal person. And the sad thing is, people who haven't experienced being with a narcissist or around a narcissist, we cannot actually comprehend how they can be so cruel at times. But it's because they're mentally unhealthy, and it's really a sad situation. It really is. But they have many issues, and there's many types of narcissists, like covert. Some narcissists can be very successful. Some narcissists have to lie and cheat and steal. And my husband actually did all of those things. So there's many levels of narcissism and many extremes.
But yet, through, your upbringing and your marriage, you were able to somehow find success.
Yes.
How did you do that?
Well, one thing, when you're in those types of relationships, you never feel good enough. And you always want to be very, very good. You want to meet those expectations. Although with the narcissist, you can never meet the expectations because they continue to go higher and higher and higher. I always wanted to meet expectations. So I've actually been successful in a way with everything I've done. But as I look back now, after I healed myself, I realized that I stopped myself from the full success. I stopped myself from writing books, doing what I love, and that's because you feel like you're not enough. You feel like you're not going to succeed, even though I was succeeding, but I had a lot of issues that I needed to heal. But at that time, I didn't know I had those issues. It's like Dr. Phil always says, you don't know what you don't know. You've got to figure it out. You've got to find out why you're getting triggered, why you're getting in those relationships and things like that.
What, what was the catalyst for this book? Like, what made you finally decide to sit down and share this experience?
So even though being with that man was the worst thing in my life, I thank God every day for it, because it's what woke me up and made me realize what I've been doing my whole life is getting in these unhealthy relationships, allowing people to walk all over me. I had no boundaries. So when I was getting a divorce, I was trying to get a protective order. And in order to do that, I had to go to the Hill Country Crisis Council so they could help me. I had to write down, different events. And, I had dealt with a lot of trauma. So that really changed my life, because I got the most amazing counselor, and she truly helped me heal and really saved me and changed my life, because I healed and worked through all of those past issues, past trauma, past baggage that I've been carrying my whole life. And during all of that therapy, I kept telling myself over and over and over, I had it bad, but there are so many people that have it so much worse than me. There are people that die because of narcissistic abuse, because it gets so extreme and violent. They'll hunt you down and kill you. And I just had this overwhelming feeling that I had to help people, and that, people that are in these relationships feel all alone. And I wanted people to know they're not alone, and they can heal, and they can be successful and be a better version of themselves that they could ever imagine. So that's what drove me to do this. My purpose in life is to help people heal and have a healthy life.
How long ago was it that you had this awakening?
Well, sadly, I'm 55, so I want to try and help people when they're a lot younger, but I'm still glad it happened. So it was 5 years ago that I actually started having this awakening, because I kept repeating the same cycle over and over, and I couldn't have done it without my therapist and hard work. It's very, very hard work, but it's worth the hard work.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how it's work. It doesn't just happen.
No, it doesn't. And it's a lifelong, healing process, because when you're healed, when you think you're healed and you think, I got this, I got life. Well, life's not easy all the time.
Right.
And then when you hit a hurdle, it almost wants you, you almost want to revert back to your old behavior and get triggered and all of these things that are unhealthy. But if you can maintain your focus and continue through that difficult time and learn what you learned during your healing process, you can get through anything. You really can, and come out on the other side in a better place. Always.
Powerful message you have here.
Thank you.
And now you're working with people.
Yes, and I love that.
Do you recommend your book to them?
Yes, I actually give my book to some patients here, not all of them. And the interesting thing I found about my book, I wrote that specifically for narcissistic abuse and other abuse victims. However, there's a lot of things in life that I learned by working here that parallel the behavior that we have, like people that are addicted to drugs and alcohol. They are repeating habits. And, drugs and alcohol, you can't give them a pill and make everything better. Mental abuse, physical abuse, you can't give us a pill to make everything better. And I don't think pills are good for us to take anyway, even though I'm a nurse. We have to do the mental work to get better. So what I found that was super interesting to me is that drug addicts and alcoholics can heal from my book as well. So anyone really with any sort of trauma, any past issues, this can help them heal as well, because it kind of parallels what everybody goes through when there's issues in your life. So what I'm doing is making a list where I can go contact everyone. I'm going to have a book launch, and I plan on that being a really big event. I plan on going to women's shelters, different churches, everywhere I can, because it doesn't matter. I want to help everyone everywhere. And I've read a lot about churches when you're suffering from abuse and you go to your church and they kind of don't help you, but that's because they don't know how. So they tell you to turn to God, but you also need the tools to be able to work through that. And narcissists a lot of times can be the pillar in the church. So that makes it difficult. So I would like to go to churches. Yes, it's sad, but it's true, because they put on this mask. So I just want to go everywhere. I want to give talks and speeches. I want to have groups. I am working with the Hill Country Crisis Council with actually my counselor. I couldn't speak to her 2 years because of the rules when you go through counseling. But after the 2 years, she reached out to me. She said, do you want to do support groups? I said, absolutely. So I'm doing whatever I can to help people and promote my book, because I think it really can help a lot of people.
Yeah. Whole new purpose in your life.
Yes.
Yeah. Melisa Schiffers, author of Unchained, Healing from Abuse, and Interactive Workbook. So this is an actual workbook.
Yes, it is. It has a lot of my stories in it, but as you move forward, or to the end, it has actual steps that you need to take to heal.
That's great, Melisa. Thank you so much for talking to me.
You're welcome. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Robin Hudson comes from a long line of ranchers. Her family's been at it for 100 years in Texas, where her whole family lives on a ranch. The parents, the grandkids, the kids. She homeschools her 4 children and finds time to write. In fact, she started a series called Manners Do Matter. Now, today we're talking about the first book. It is entitled A Dog Named Moose. I have to ask you, Robin, are you a Yellowstone fan?
It's funny you say that. My grandparents' last name is Dutton.
You gotta be kidding me. That's
I'm
hilarious.
not. I'm serious. Yeah, when they came out, we were like, "Are you kidding? we need a commission off of that."
Robin, I think you need to go write a book about your ranch family here.
I know. There's so much I could say.
I bet. No, I bet.
So I have 4 children and I homeschool.
I don't know how you do that.
It's hard some days, but it's so rewarding to get to spend all that time with my kids and get to see something click. It's great.
When did you start writing?
I have always enjoyed writing. When I was little, my teachers would give an assignment, and occasionally one would come to me and be like, "Is this true?" And I'd be like, "No, I just made it up. I just like writing stories." So, um, so it's just been something that's just always been there.
Okay, so there's a difference between writing and then taking the leap into publishing.
Yes.
So what made you do that?
Okay, so this particular story, I wrote it in a day, probably. It's just something that I think the Lord was just like, "Here you go." And so I jotted it down on my phone, just punched it in, and it sat there for years, probably 3 or 4 years. And I thought, I could do something with this, and I think I'm going to. So I have a family friend who she had published something, and so I talked to her about it, and she said she had gone through Fulton Books and she really enjoyed the process. So I checked him out, and that's who I chose. And I found an illustrator, and we ran. It was great.
Where did the story come from?
I think character building and teaching good character, showing good character so that littles can see it lived out is important. So I thought manners, something with manners is good. And my children are elementary age and younger, and I thought this is something they can relate to. This is something that they can see a story about, and it's not mama going, mind your manners. It's a character that they like, and he learns the lesson, and it's something that they can see and choose to apply to their own life. So we have a Great Dane named Moose, and he is big and clumsy. He's very sweet, but he doesn't have any manners, and he knocks things over, and he lands on the counter, and just things that he's too big to be doing. So he has to learn that, you know, as well intending as you may be, there are things that you need to have some self control on. You need to think about others for. So he goes through this lesson where he has to learn that.
Do you really have a Great Dane? Do you really?
I do not have a Great Dane, but I have a Dalmatian in the story, Darla, and I had a Dalmatian. She died last year, but her name was Pepper, and she was fabulous. And so I really wanted to stick a Dalmatian in there somewhere just to kind of give her a little a little spotlight. Um, so she made it in the book, but I don't have a Great Dane. I just always have thought they're such big, goofy looking, sweet characters, and I thought it would make a good lead role.
So how do you teach manners?
So Moose goes to obedience class, and he is doing great, and he learns all these new things, and he learns how to use them. But then a gopher pops up. It's an outside class, and then this gopher pops up. And Darla takes off. She's like, no question, instinct pure. I know I'm not supposed to, but here I go. And all the other dogs are either chasing or barking or something that they shouldn't be doing either. And the illustrator captured Moose's face so wonderfully in this. You can see the conflict. He wants to go, and there's this peer pressure, and there's this instinct, but he also knows in his heart that that's not what he's supposed to be doing. So he has a choice, which I feel like we all face that at times. And so he has to decide, is he going to do what he wants to, or is he going to do what he knows is right? And in the end, he chooses what he knows is right, and he's rewarded for it.
So when you're reading this book, you relate it to the children.
Yes. I think it's simple enough that it's something almost anyone can understand. But I feel like there's some depth there that, they go on this adventure with him where, he starts off kind of raw and kind of messy, and then he goes and he learns all these things, and then he's faced with his choice. And I'm hoping that people can kind of feel that tension there. But then he sees the pride on his owner's face that he did do a good job. And in the end, the last line is that it wasn't so much that he cared to be flattered. It was pride in the truth that manners do matter.
That's great.
Thank you so much.
Moose have more adventures?
Yes, I have some ideas for 2 other books that I've started on. I want all of this series to be life lessons that kids can apply to themselves. So I am thinking about the next one. I want it to be he goes and visits a ranch and he meets the working dog, the cattle dog, and he has to learn that a job worth doing is worth doing well. You can't half-heart something. You can't just, oh, well, it's not my best, but it's going to be good enough and I'll leave it there. And then you wind up having to go do it twice. That's something that I've been working with my kids on lately is if you'll do it right the first time, you don't have to go back and do it twice or 3 times. You could just do it well when you first go after
That's
it.
a good one.
Thank you. And I was thinking about introducing another puppy later down the line and kind of relating it to a big brother or a big sister bringing home a new baby and maybe putting a little jealousy in there and then overall, you love the little new one so much that it's fine.
Yeah. So are you able to talk about your book and read it to other kids?
Yes, we have such a great community around us. I've had a lot of support and I've had a lot of great feedback on mamas, and even some of the kids have come up to me and Miss Robin, we read your book last night. It's so fun, things like that. So it just makes my heart really happy to hear things like that. But I think my kids have, they have some investedness, they're a little invested in it, and I think they're kind of proud of it too. They feel like they're a part of it. So my community has been really great. We call it Light Up the Town, where the weekend after Thanksgiving, they turn all the lights on around the square and they put on a big, late sale where all the shops stay open late, and they let some pop-up booths come. So I took my book there and did very well with the community, and the library let me do a reading. So it's been fun. It's been a good support group here.
This has opened up a whole new world for you.
It's so fun, and it's really cool. My great grandma wrote, and they saved a lot of the things that she did, and so it's been neat to see that come down and then watch my kids after the book got published. My 2 oldest started writing their own stories, and one would illustrate, and then my third, she loves to color, and you'd say, "What are you doing?" And she'd say, "Oh, I'm illustrating a book." I'm like, yes, I love it.
What better reason could there be to write a book?
Right. It's so encouraging.
Yeah.
To just be like, that's not a barrier. You can do that. It's not something other people do. You can do that. So it's been neat.
All right. Robin Hudson, author of A Dog Named Moose, the first book in her series, Manners Do Matter. Thank you so much.
Thank you too. I appreciate the time.
A decade in the making, Lisa Bargo finally had the courage to write and publish her book, From the Pole to the Pulpit. So, Lisa, this is basically your life story, correct?
It is. I was raised in a traditional Pentecostal home. My dad was a pastor. So I had a very strict upbringing. And then my whole reason for writing the book was because I feel like people will respond better to the church if church people were more honest about their struggles, and the things that they deal with and go through. And I thought, people that I talk to on generally, it helps, like when they understand, you don't claim to be perfect. And, so I just wanted to reach out to people that feel like maybe they've messed up too much or done it too much, that they couldn't have a relationship with Christ, that kind of thing. And it was good therapy for me, actually.
What happened? Tell me what the story is.
Well, like I said, being raised very strict, of course, I had to, as most people do, you want to test the waters and see what the world has out there. But I never really felt like I fit in because there was always something missing. If I didn't stay on that straight and narrow path, I would just felt sorrowful. And then several marriages, not the best. The first time I was married, I was really young, and we kind of just grew apart. He was unfaithful, so that was very devastating me because my parents were married. My dad passed away right before their 60th wedding anniversary. So I knew what a good marriage was, and that was my desire to have that. But cards played me a different hand. So I married a second time, and that was very mentally abusive. I stayed with him for 20 years because I didn't really want a divorce. I wanted to do the right thing, but long story short, I finally had enough and didn't go about things in the right way. I feel like I failed God in many areas of my life, but thankful that for his grace, and I'm on the right path again. And so my book, From the Pulpit to the Pulpit, is based on, in my 20s, I became a stripper for a while. And which was way out of my upbringing. So that, of course, was a battle there. And then after my father passed away, I'd rededicated my life to the Lord later. But when my father passed away, I really got serious with God and began to seek him and actually accepted the call to minister. So I was an evangelist for a while. And then with the way life hit me, hit me hard, I ended up backsliding again. And so it's been a while since I preached from the pulpit. I enjoy more of like a one-on-one ministry. I have spoke at women's groups, and I still am open to do that. That's my heart, to just encourage women who have been through so much. I've been raped. I've been molested by my family doctor. I've had abusive marriages, but it's my faith in God, that got me through it all.
When you say traditional Pentecostal, what exactly does that mean?
Well, I wasn't allowed to wear makeup. Couldn't cut your hair. You didn't listen to rock and roll music. I couldn't wear pants like all my friends in school. I wore dresses my whole life. That type of thing, tongue talkers, shouting, running the pews. I'm thankful for my heritage. I'm thankful for my upbringing. I don't necessarily agree with everything that I was brought up to believe. I began to read the Word of God myself. And, the Bible says, seek out your own soul's salvation with fear and trembling. So I prayed that God would show me his truth.
How did you end up in these situations?
Well, okay, so I think I was raised up that a woman was to be submissive. So I think that set me up to be a doormat for men, honestly. Yeah, because I was raised, that the woman is submissive and that, the man is the head of the household. And, there were times, especially when I was trying very hard to live my life pleasing to God, that that was taken advantage of. And the Bible was manipulated, and I thought I had to submit to everything, and not, that kind of thing. So I have a little bit of resentment, I think. I don't blame my mother in any way. That was the way she was raised. It was, and I think, led my daughters down the wrong path, but thank God they're not like that now. We've made better choices, and very open with my children. So
Did you wind up seeking therapy?
nope, just prayer. Yeah, that's what helped me more than anything. And facing, I guess, I wasn't always proud of myself or proud of my choices, and have a lot of regrets, but I am very happy with who I am today. I'm very fulfilled. I feel confident. I'm no longer a doormat. You know what I mean? It took me a while to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I have to ask you, do you still think women should be submissive to their husbands?
I look at it like this. If you have a godly husband who is doing his role in following Christ, he will put you first. It's easy to be submissive to a godly man. I don't want that responsibility. I feel like a man is the head of the household, but I think they're a team. I don't think I have to do everything that my husband says to me, it's like, you work together. Like I'm very happily married now. Um, love my husband. He's very supportive. Not that we haven't had our ups and downs. That's book 2. I have a second book that's coming out. Yeah, it's Falling from the Pulpit into Grace is my second book. I just submitted it to Fulton. And they approved it. So I'm getting ready to get that all going.
It sounds like writing is really helping you work through all of this.
It did. Well, it did. I think so because, when you put something down on paper and you look back, because there's times I'm like, man, I was such an idiot, or I don't know why I allowed this or why I did this. And I don't really have an answer except for, we're human and we do the best we can with what's presented to us.
And it's not how you fall, it's how you get up.
Exactly.
Now, you said that you have spoken to women's groups and whatnot. Is that helping you get your book out there?
Well, I'm waiting for the Lord to open those doors. They just did my press release. It just came out. I'm going to do book signings. I actually am talking with the church now that does women's prison ministry.
Okay.
So that's where my heart's at. I want people to say, hey, it's never too late. It's, you've never, God's always ready to receive you. And he loves us even in our failure. He knew we would fail when we were born. I still have a lot of guilt about failing God. I feel like I failed God again but I can't change that. It is what it is. So my prayer is that God, you use me from here. You take all my mistakes and turn it for good. If it can help somebody else, then I thank God that I had the strength to get through it. I'm sorry I get emotional. But yeah.
No, you've done a great thing here. This is wonderful. You should be so proud of yourself.
I appreciate that. The word I get from people is brave, and I don't see it as brave, but I don't have any skeletons left in my closet. There's nothing nobody can use against me because I put it all out there. I mean, this is who I am. And I just want people to see how far God can bring somebody,
What an inspiration.
I appreciate it. That's what I want to be. That's what I want for people that are down, and women that just feel like there's no hope. There is hope. There's a new day. There was a point where in my second book, I was actually suicidal. That was my lowest point. And it was at that point that I looked in the mirror at my past, my choices, wasn't always happy with them. And I did not like the reflection looking back at me. And I'd always seem to make excuses for my sin, or I tried to justify my sin. But it was in that moment of true repentance, that's when my life changed. So I thank God for that,
All right, Lisa. Good stuff. Lisa Bargo, From the Pole to the Pulpit. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. You have a great day.
I caught up with Earl Coobs in his 18-wheeler outside Kansas City, Missouri, to talk about one of several books he's written. It is entitled A Pale Awakening. What's going on, Earl?
Well, I'm a truck driver. I was retired, but then I went back to work. I got too bored sitting at home and just riding, so I went back to work for a while.
Okay. How long have you been writing?
Since about 2 years.
What made you start writing?
Well, I drove a truck for 50 years, so I kept I listened to audiobooks. I listened to hundreds of hours of audiobooks, and I kept making up stories in my mind. And I retired. I decided it was time to put them down on paper, and see if I could sell them.
How many hours do you travel at a time?
Well, according to the law, I can drive 11 hours in a 14-hour window. Then I have to take 10 hours off.
Oh.
So it's 70 hours a week in an 8-day week.
Who makes sure that you take that time off?
Well, there's a device in the truck called an ELD, and it's an automatic logger. Anytime that truck moves, it logs. Before that, it was log books, and they had DOT that would stop and check you to see if it was filled out correctly. But you could cheat on that. Well, this one you can't cheat on. Whenever that truck's moving, it records it. So
You'll listen to audiobooks for 11 hours at a shot.
I do. Yeah, basically all day, every day. And I still do. Right now, I get them from the library. I download them and I listen to them on via Bluetooth in my truck. So
That's great. So you decided you could write one.
I decided I could.
All right. What'd you come up with?
Well, I have 5 books out right now. My last one was The Oracle of the Seas, and my first one was The Obsidian Rig. And they're a little bit longer than novellas, but they're not. Most of them are not quite novel length. I have one, bus number 43. It's novel length. It's a long book. But most of mine are about they're between novellas and novels.
Did you publish them all with the same publisher?
I did not. Different publishers. I've been trying to find an agent, and I haven't found one yet. So I've been self-publishing.
So is this your first one with Page?
It is.
Was your experience any different than with the other publishers?
You know, Page is pretty responsible. They seem to me like they're a little bit more responsible than anybody else.
So you had a good experience.
Yeah, I did.
All right. So what's your book about?
Well, that book, it's about effigy mounds. I was born and raised in Northeast Iowa, and there's a place a little bit north of me called Effigy Mounds, and it's created back, I guess, about 900, the year 900 or somewhere around in there. So it has a bunch of images like animals and stuff that were created there, and that's where the Native Americans were buried. Well, my mother used to tell us stories about that place. So my book is about, they come back to life via the first ancestral race seed that was corrupted ended up corrupting this place, and they kind of came back to life and wanted to take over again. And there's a small band of people, a sheriff, a newspaper writer, a clairvoyant, an extra somebody that knows ETs and talks about them on the radio at night, and they all kind of got together to defeat this, to defeat the entities that are trying to take over.
Do you have a main character?
Sheriff Sterling is one of the main characters. He ends up losing his wife to this entity because it can kind of take over your life. But
what do you call it? An anthropy?
What ended up corrupting them was the first ancestral race seed. It was a seed that was sent out by a race way above ours, and it was sent out to different planets, kind of like planet seeding. So that it ended up here, but it ended up being corrupted by the Nazis. They got a hold of it, and they ended up corrupting that seed. But it ended up being in metal to start with.
How do they get it?
Well, this one ended up going into a spring, an underground spring, from a Peterbilt truck. From my first book, The Obsidian Rig. It's a standalone book, but this kind of takes off where my first book, the Obsidian Rig, left off. It ended up being in a rock quarry in Northeast Iowa, and it ended up going from there through an underground spring to Effigy Mounds, where it energized some of the old spirits that were there, that had been there for 1,000 years. And there were some really bad guys that were in Effigy Mounds that were buried there.
And then how do they end up colliding with the humans?
Through kind of like they ended up through mind control, kind of. It's it energized the spirits, and the spirits started working on them and having them do things that they normally wouldn't do.
Like what?
They ended up acting kind of like wild animals. They end up killing people, taking over their lives, making them do odd, strange things. They make the animals do things, work on the animals. They can have like deer and stuff will come out and walk in town in the middle of the daytime and stuff and create havoc. It's like taking over a diner or restaurant and trashing it, or making them do things that they normally wouldn't do. Let's say you're sitting there in the local cafe, and all of a sudden a bunch of people come in and start breaking things and destroying things. And there's deer and animals and all kinds of wild animals walking through town like it's the woods, and there's nothing going on. So there's one guy, and they interact with the local people and make them kind of take over their personality and their spirit. They were originally locked in there.
In the year 900.
Right. But now because of this first ancestral race seed, kind of awoke them up and is letting them out.
Oh, okay. And so they take over this town.
Right. Kind of the county. and they have different people doing different things, and they kind of bring out the worst in people.
Why do they want to do that?
So they can be free. They were actually imprisoned there, and the mounds on top of their graves have some kind of power to keep them in the ground. They were actually very bad people. They were Ho-Chunk Indians are the ones that are also involved in this. They're part of my band of unlikely crusaders to stop this. The Ho-Chunk Indians from Wisconsin are also involved in this, and these Indians, these Native Americans that were encapsulated there, they were very bad race. They're very cruel, very mean.
And is there a group trying to stop them?
Yes, I have one of the local newspaper writers for the newspaper. She's involved, and then I have a fellow that he's a talk show host in Chicago, and he does the extraterrestrial talk at night. Like Art Bell used to do. He has one of those shows. Then I have the sheriff, and I have the people that works for the state park, and they all get together and they try to put a stop to this. And involved with the Catholic Church also, they try to get somebody from the Catholic Church to come and help them. But the Catholic Church lost somebody in my first book trying to stop this Peterbilt truck. Those are the people that band together, and the sheriff's wife ended up losing his wife. She ends up committing suicide. They're trying to get the sheriff to stop doing what he's doing. They want to distract him, so they have his wife actually kill herself.
Oh my gosh.
It's pretty exciting.
So you've written 5 books altogether.
I have.
And do you have any kind of a following?
I do, but it's mostly family and friends. I'm starting to grow, but it's CoobsAuthor.com. And I have all the books there, and I have a following. I'm trying to get one built up.
Do you do signings or book talks?
I haven't. This is my first interview.
This is your first interview in all 5 books? This is your first interview?
It is.
All right. Well, welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable podcast.
Well, thank you.
You are a character. You crack me up. All right. You are Earl Coobs, author of A Pale Awakening. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Shawn Wayne started a roofing company 2 years ago, and that's when he got the idea to write 2 books, one of them entitled Thinking at the Level of Logos. Welcome, Shawn. So, just out of the blue, this idea for a sort of self-help, self-actualization book just hit you.
It just came to me. I don't know why.
What is the Logos?
The Logos is the primary principle of the perfection of the universe. It starts way back. That word is actually a Greek word. It comes from the ancient Greek philosophers, just before Socrates, pre-Socratic, about how the universe is perfect and it's harmony and it's beautiful and it's purely just. It's love, it's peace, it's harmony. And whenever you get away from that part of the universe and your mind starts thinking with depravity and anger and unforgiveness, and it starts giving off an energy, and you attract those types of things. And then also in the Bible, because the New Testament was written in Greek, and Alexander the Great brought Greek philosophy and Greek influence into Rome and Israel and all those areas. So the Bible, the New Testament, was written in Greek, and it actually says Jesus is incarnate of the Logos. The Bible actually in English says the Word became flesh. Well, the word is actually translated from Logos. It doesn't do it justice, but this is the Logos became flesh, or otherwise the Logos became Jesus, and the essence of God became Jesus. So that's the ultimate principle of the universe. But it's not a religious book, but it does give that fact.
So what was the catalyst for you to write this? Did you have a sort of awakening or realization?
Yeah, I started reading books on how the mind works in my 20s, and then I've practiced it with meditation and things, and it works perfectly every single time. If you can imagine it and actually feel the emotion as though you already are where you are, that's the hard part, is feeling it. Instead of letting doubt, well, I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know how I'm going to get there. Our job is not to worry about how we're going to get there. That's God's problem, or the Logos's problem. We just have to assume that we're already there and then watch it come to you. But you have to forgive and you have to let go, and you can't be angry, and you have to have wisdom. And when you put yourself in harmony with that Logos, then your life becomes much, much, much better in all areas.
So give me an example.
For example, let's say you have some unforgiveness from someone in the past, and you constantly run it through your mind, and you're angry at that thing or that person or that situation, and it just builds up in you. And then when you talk to people, you get angry quicker at them, not knowing it's actually the anger that's inside you, bitterness that's all throughout your mind and your system, and then it spills out into all the other areas. And then your finances suffer, your relationships suffer because of that unforgiveness, that anger, and it also bleeds into everything. But when you correct your mind and think about, okay, I know that that person was wrong, I don't want anything to do with that person, but I let it go. I'm not going to allow it to affect me emotionally today. When I think about it, I'm not going to have an emotional response. I'm going to forgive. I'm going to be happier. I'm going to imagine what I want my future to be instead of thinking about how bad it was in the past. I'm not going to be anxious for my future. I'm going to be happy today. And then everything starts to change because you change your mind and your personality. When you change your personality, everything else changes, but you have to change the personality first, and that's the difficult part.
And you accomplished that through meditation.
Meditation, prayer, study, yes.
What did you study?
Philosophy, the Bible, different philosophies from the Greeks mainly. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher, he wrote a book, The Meditations. I mean, just as much as I don't have time to read as much as I would like, but yeah, those types of books and those types of things, yes.
So you're saying in your book that you will learn how to reach beautiful levels of life that will clear out the anxiety of worrying about the future and anger from thinking about the past. What do you tell your readers to do?
Well, the first thing is the main thing that I have found is forgiveness. You have to forgive either yourself from the past, the people that have hurt you, your childhood traumas. It could be horrible things. The first thing that I've always found is you have to let everything from the past go, and that's the hardest part, is to let it go and not be angry or mad or sad about the past anymore. So when people can start, even if it's a little bit every day, they start to get better, and then it's easier to let everything else fall into place. But forgiveness is usually the first place that has to begin.
So, I mean, then you have to redefine that situation. So, if you had a particular situation, a specific situation, can you give me an example of something that happened in your life and you learned how to look at it differently? I mean, that's why people wind up in therapy, because they can't they can't reimagine, or they can't look at that situation any other way except being angry, you know?
Correct.
So how do you get there?
Well, there's different ways to get there. I mean, therapy is one way. It's a good thing. It's some people are ashamed of doing that, but that's one good way to deal with it, is to talk to somebody and help them. But you can also just focus on just telling yourself, hey, I'm going to let this go. I'm not going to be angry about this anymore, and I'm going to start thinking about my future and how I want it to look. And I'm going to feel how that's going to feel. Maybe I want to fall in love with someone, and I'm going to imagine that I'm already in love with someone, happy with someone. And you have to start changing your thoughts instead of the anger, and looking at everything with an angry situation. Look at it with it.
Was there a situation in your life that made you particularly angry?
Oh, sure.
Do you talk about that in your book?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in a home that it was not a bad home. I'm not going to paint it as like, oh, I was in a horrible situation. No, it was just my mom and dad were together for 50 years. I had the best mom in the world. My dad was a pastor. We had a good, happy family for the most part, but my dad never spent any time with me, never validated me, always told me I was lazy, good for nothing, never came to any of my sporting events. But we always had Christmas presents. My dad was not a bad person, didn't beat, never saw my dad drink, never heard him cuss. I mean, he was a true believer of God, but he just his father wasn't very good to him. So he didn't know how to be, good to his kids. But he wasn't abusive, but there was no validation. It was always animosity or anger or, haha, you can't do it. I told you you'd fail. You knew you couldn't do it. And it was just over and over and over and over like that my whole life. And, So when I got older, I always had problems trying to seek I didn't know it, what I was doing at the time, but I'm always trying to get validation, either from women or from, hey, I gotta work harder because I gotta prove to everybody I'm good enough, or I have to be number one here because I gotta be good enough, and I would always have bad relationships or broken things or from one job to another job. And then when I started reading books when I was about 28. And there was a book called Power of Your Subconscious Mind, which I mentioned in my book. And it showed me how to think differently, see things differently. And then I started to change my mind and my personality, but I still didn't know about that forgiveness piece from my past until later on. And then through church, some other things of that nature, and praying a lot, it was just a moment. It took a long time. I mean, it took a long time for me to be able to forgive. And I wanted to forgive, and I even knew that it was a problem, but it was so hard to do it because it was just embedded in me for so long. But eventually you keep fighting it, and eventually you overcome it, and you let it go. But you have to meditate, you have to try, you have to be consistent, pray, and be God does definitely help as well. So you have to pray, and you have to believe, and you have to just keep fighting at it. But the forgiveness, I can say that, hey, I had a great life. I'm not mad at my dad anymore. There was times where I would just, if nobody was in my house at the time, I would not even realize it, but I would start yelling at my dad. He's been dead for a long time.
Wow.
And so that's the problem. And I continuously had high blood pressure or some kind of problems. And I always went to the gym. I would eat right. I used to own fitness centers. But the meditation and the changing of your personality and the way you have to think and understand that, hey, I do have this forgiveness. Some people don't even realize it, but you first have to realize that it's there. And usually you have other things in your life, whether some people might be drinking too much, or maybe they eat too much, or pornography, or some other addiction. And and those things will be in them as well, because they're trying to feel good for a moment, because there's so much unforgiveness and anger and bitterness all throughout their mind and body. They have to feel good for a moment, and those are the escapes. But that's when you have to, the forgiveness is always the number one thing usually that I've found.
It is. And you know what? I think forgiving yourself.
That 100%. That's the biggest, that's one of the bigger ones too.
So how do you communicate this? How are you sharing it?
Posted on Facebook a little bit.
No, do people know you in your community? You're a roofer.
Oh yeah, people know me all over the place.
They'd probably be fascinated to find out that you wrote a book about how to be a better person.
Right.
That's the kind of guy that I want to put a roof on my house.
Right.
Yeah, right. You are Shawn Wayne, author of Thinking at the Level of Logos. Thanks so much for talking to me.
My pleasure. Thank you for calling.
Who's got the best grandma? You do, right? Sylvia Brown's grandmother was the inspiration for her book entitled My Grandma is Better Than Your Own. So, Sylvia, you're a mother of two girls, 11 and 7, and they play a pretty significant role in this book, but you didn't start writing till 2016. Why is that?
Well, our nephew he died, right? And I was trying to find ways of, using my emotions in a way that influences others, even though throughout the hurt, through the pain, you can still encourage others as you go through it. And it was very therapeutic for me. So I started writing, and I've been loving it ever since.
Do you mind me asking what happened to your nephew?
He committed suicide.
Oh, geez. How old?
18. I know.
I'm so sorry.
I know. It gets better every day.
You know how many people I talk to that tell me the same thing?
Really?
The therapeutic power of writing. They went through something really rough. And if they don't do it on their own, they end up in therapy. And their therapist tells them, start writing, keep a journal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I don't know. I just started writing my thoughts. And I started missing my grandma. And I was just picturing, what would she have told me if she was here? And I just pictured her in my mind as if she was right next to me, and she would put her, I don't know how she does it, but she puts her chin in her chest, And she'll lean all the way over to you and say, you mad? And I'd be like, no, I'm not mad, and I thought about her, and that's how this came about.
So it sounds like she was a pretty exceptional grandmother.
Yes, she was. She kept me on my toes. I'm gonna tell you that. 'Cause I took care of her for a long time as well. She was very energetic. She was a homemaker, and she was very energetic. There's nothing that woman could not do. I'm gonna tell you that. She liked to cook. She was saying she's very active in church. She loved kids. She loved to make things fun for kids. She loved to cook. She loved doing crafting things like, with her hands. She's very crafty with her hands. And she was always active.
What kinds of stuff did she do with you?
We would do like arts and crafts. She liked stories. Like she liked her little soap operas. I would sit with her with that when she's on her resting time. She's a nature lady. She loves outside. She loves outdoors. We would go outside and, eat a little ice cream together. She would always get me some ice cream, little chocolate fudge and the vanilla cream in the inside. She loved telling me stories. Her stories are like we'd go outside and she would just talk about, things that happened in her days. And those days were just, oh my gosh, so funny. She was a feisty lady. And you know not to mess with her when she comes.
So you put this all together into a children's book.
Yes. The characters are our daughters. And the main character is our oldest daughter. Because, at this time, it's the 11-year-old. And she's kind of explaining, what kind of grandma she has. And I put it all laid out like that because I wanted to emphasize how important grandmas are in our lives. They are the piece of the pie. And, without them, where would we be? The characters is Yana and Zanaya explaining how active their grandma is and how, your grandma is not, my grandma's better than your grandma. Can your grandma do this? Well, my grandma can do this. Can your grandma do that? She loves to cook. Her meals is what brings everybody together at the table. And that's one of the loving part of the day, being with grandma in the evening. And the funny part is how she loved to wear her wigs. And she got all different kinds, just for whatever occasion that she feels. She loves to look nice. To her interpretation, she looks nice, but to the children, it's like, grandma, that's ancient. Like that's not how we dress nowadays. And to grandma is, that's the way she wants to dress.
What kind of wigs?
Curly wigs, wavy wigs, any wig that just any color. Any color, any length, to making a statement that it doesn't matter what you have on your head or how you look, you just be you. And the sweater as well. She wears this sweater that's just, the pattern just doesn't match the colors, but it doesn't match either. But the point of the matter is it doesn't matter what you wear or what you have on. It's the beauty within you that shines. It doesn't matter what you wear. It doesn't matter what you have on your head or how your skin look or, And I wanted to emphasize that as well.
That's really cute.
At the end, she's like, the kids are playing and she's very active with the girls. And when the girls play, even though she's not playing with them, she's screaming and acting as if she's with them. So every time the girls play or they make like noise as if the dolls are making sounds or, acting out the dolls, she would go along with them. And that's what make her, fun and active because she gets down to their level, just as my grandma did. She would get down to my level and play with me as if, you can do this, I can do this too. We can have fun together. Basically talking about how love, grandma is love. Where would we be without grandma? Grandma is love, and it's such a blessing. Like I was only blessed to see one of my grandmother. I have never met any of my grandparents. That's the only one that I've met. And my girls were blessed to see just about all of them, except on my mom's side. So they've seen on their dad's side. That's just a blessing just for a child to see all of their grandparents, or even just one, or just experience their life, And I wanted to emphasize that on, just grandma. Grandma is just so awesome and amazing. a beautiful, beautiful person. And I just wanted to bring and shine a light to that, like how beautiful grandma's roles are in our lives.
Beautiful. Nice. Do your kids love this book?
Oh my gosh, they ask me to read it all the time. Mom, can I read the book? Go ahead. Can I read your book?
Do you read it in their school?
I am working on that. They usually do like Grandparents' Day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that'll be the perfect time to read that to the children. And actually, I am supposed to go to Otranto Library, like maybe 15, 20 minutes away from here. And they usually do like reading or story time on Saturdays for the children. So I think that'd be a perfect time as well.
That's great. That's perfect. That's exactly what you need to be doing. Are you going to keep writing?
Yes, ma'am. I love it. I can't stop.
Oh, you got another book already?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So you're hooked.
Yes, ma'am. I'm not going anywhere.
All right. You are Sylvia Brown. My grandma is better than your own. Thanks so much for talking to me.
Yes, ma'am. It's such a pleasure. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.